When I was a kid, my grandma, Myra Klein, used to tell me bedtime stories, but hers were nothing like fairy tales. She didn't warn me about monsters in the closet or beasts under the bed. She warned me about voices, voices that could copy people, voices that sounded just like someone you loved, but weren't. I'll never forget what she told me, her eyes serious, her tone low. "Sweetie," she'd say, "if you ever hear me calling you after dark, when you know I'm asleep, check the voice. Listen close. It might not be me." I always laughed it off, thinking she was just being eccentric, maybe a little too imaginative for her age. But one night, I learned she wasn't just telling stories. She was giving me a warning. I was sleeping over at her house, a classic childhood tradition. A storm was raging outside, the rain hitting the roof so hard it sounded like a constant, frantic knocking. It was the kind of storm that makes a house feel both like a fortress and a trap. Around 2 in the morning, something woke me up. It wasn't the storm. It was a voice from downstairs. "Sweetie, come here. I need you." It was my grandma's voice, but it was wrong, utterly wrong. The pitch was too deep, the words drawn out, too slow. It sounded like someone trying to force sound through something broken, something not designed for speech. It was a grotesque imitation. My heart started to pound against my ribs. I was scared, but also curious. I slowly got out of bed, and the old wooden floorboards let out a loud, groaning creak under my feet. The second the sound echoed through the quiet house, the voice downstairs immediately stopped. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the voice itself. I crept to my bedroom door, my hand trembling as I reached for the knob. I had to know what was happening. I had to see if my grandma was okay. I walked toward the top of the stairs, peering into the inky blackness of the first floor. But before I could take a single step down, a hand clamped down hard on my shoulder. I flinched, spinning around with a gasp. It was my grandma, standing right behind me in the dark hallway, her face pale, her eyes wide with a fear I had never seen in her before. She put a finger to her lips and whispered, her voice barely audible, "Don't go downstairs. Whatever you do, don't listen." That's not me. I was frozen, a cold dread washing over me. "Grandma, what is it? What's down there?" She leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear. "It's a mimic," she whispered, the words chilling me to the bone. "A voice thief. It's been following our family for generations." Just as she finished speaking, a sound erupted from downstairs. A loud, repetitive thudding against the walls. It wasn't the sound of a person knocking. It was clumsy, arrhythmic, like something was slamming its whole body into the plaster, not understanding how limbs or bones were supposed to work. Then, the voice called out again, "Sweetie, come here." But this time the tone was different. It sounded joyful. It was a sickening, gleeful sound, as if it knew I had heard it, as if it was thrilled by the chase. My grandma grabbed my arm and pulled me back into the bedroom, her grip surprisingly strong. She slowly, silently, turned the old brass key, locking the door. The thudding downstairs grew louder, more frantic. "It cannot climb stairs," she whispered, her voice shaking, "but it learns. Every year, it gets a little closer. Every year, it learns another step." We spent the rest of the night huddled together, listening to the thing downstairs as it paced and slammed against the walls, occasionally calling my name in that broken, horrifying parody of my grandmother's voice. By the time the sun finally rose, everything was quiet. The storm had passed, and the house was still. My grandma, looking exhausted and years older, finally unlocked the door. She took my hand and led me downstairs. I expected to see chaos, broken furniture, shattered walls, but there was nothing. The living room was exactly as we had left it. Nothing was broken, nothing was moved, except for one thing. The heavy oak front door, which she always double-bolted, was wide open, and just outside, in the soft, wet mud left by the storm, were footprints. They weren't human. They were bare, impossibly huge and misshapen. They were deep and distorted, as if they belonged to something that walked on its knuckles. Years passed. I grew up, moved away. My grandma got older, frailer. We never spoke about the mimic again. It was an unspoken, shared trauma, a dark secret that hung between us. Until her last night. She was in the hospital, and she called me. Her voice was weak, raspy, but it was hers. It was normal, human. All she said was, "When I die, don't listen if you hear me again. Promise me." I promised, my throat tight. That night, she passed away peacefully in her sleep. I was heartbroken, grieving. At exactly 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the dark room. I looked at the screen, and a cold wave of pure terror washed over me. The caller ID said, "Grandma." For a moment, I just stared at it, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Against every instinct, I answered. I put the phone to my ear, not daring to breathe. There was a pause, then a familiar, yet distorted voice chuckled on the other end. "Sweetie," it said, its tone dripping with triumph. I learned the stairs,